budget to bring a better outcome, as the budgets will have broad policy thrust of a new beginning for the Commission. The key objective of the 2019 budget is to realign the Commission to its core mandate by developing a new baseline for a better Niger Delta region in line with the Niger Delta Regional Development Master Plan. In line with the federal government's policy to have a uniform budget calendar and to ensure that resources are managed prudently and utilized solely for the public good, we have strengthened the confidence of contractors and also reduced the volume of our budget by compressing all projects in the approved 2018 budget below 250 million naira into line item sector by sectors in various states. It is our belief that only performing contractors will access the funds in that sector on performance basis. Permit me, distinguished chairman and members of this committee, to make some adjustments in our 2019 revenue projection, which was predicated on the 409 billion naira. This includes federal government contribution of 1.39 billion is proposed as listed below. The projected revenue of the Commission for 2019 is as follows. Proposed revenue brought forward. Earlier revenue projection, 11 billion. Adjusted revenue projection, 11. Federal government contribution, 128.683 billion. Adjusted revenue projection, 100,188,921,129. Oil and gas companies contributions, 230 billion. Adjusted revenue projection, 230 billion. Unpaid arrears by federal government, 35 billion. Ecological funds, 5 billion. Adjusted revenue projection, 5 billion. Other realized incomes, 200 million. Adjusted revenue projection, 200. Total revenue is 409,883 billion. Adjusted revenue projection, 346,388,922 billion. Based on the adjustment, the 2019 budget estimates of the Commission is based on a revenue projection of 346.388921 billion. The 2019 budget represents 13% decrease over the 2018 revenue. The recurrent expenditure is made of personnel and overhead costs. Personnel expenditure, the number of staff as at 31st December 2018 was 1,444, and the approved 2018 personnel budget was 19.52 billion. The personnel budget estimate for 2019 is 21.83 billion. The increase by 12% against 2019 estimate is because of staff promotion and need to recruit low and middle level staff to fill existing gaps. The overhead cost expenditure for 2018 was 12.73 billion. In 2019, we are proposing for 12.86 billion. The increase by 1% against the 2018 is as a result of the Commission's resolve to efficiently manage its processes. The total recurrent expenditure, personnel and overhead cost for 2018 is 32.26 billion, while in 2019 we are proposing 34.70 billion, which is 8% increase above the 2018 approved. This consists of capital expenditure estimates consist of development projects, programs and non-project capital expenditure, internal capital, Development projects and program expenditure for 2018 was 311.371 billion, representing 90% of the total revenue of 346.5 billion. We are proposing 310.403 billion for 2019, representing 89.6% of the total revenue for years. The non-project capital expenditure for 2018 was 2.88 billion, while we are proposing 2.08 billion for 2019, representing 38% decrease over 2018. The Commission has given priority to adequately use its resources to concentrate on the capital development projects. Our priority is birthing to a new NDDC that will place emphasis on critical sectors of economy to complement federal government's effort in uplifting the standard of living of the Niger Delta people. Our infrastructure is of paramount importance to us. We have to work hard on this because we acknowledge that government funding alone will not be able to deliver all the benefits and services in infrastructure that we need for the region. We are also exploring public-private partnerships with other development actors, which will enable us to implement some of these infrastructure. We will continue to execute roads, power, works, bridges, jetties, canalization projects across the region. In conclusion, the NDDC has made some progress in recent years, and I'm pleased to reiterate that the 2019 budget is designed to sustain and consolidate the gains that have been recorded over the years. The theme of our 2019 budget is tagged Budget for the Repositioning of the NDDC. We are committed to prompt reporting to our stakeholders, and hence we shall put information as much as possible in the public domain. The budget itself will be uploaded on the NDDC website, www.nddc.gov.ng. Distinguished Chairman and committee members, I want to thank you all for your attention. It is my pleasure and honor to present the 2019 Niger Delta Development Commission budget proposals to this distinguished committee.
Guilty. He's and
you are not.
I'm innocent.
2003, I've been involved in the work of this committee. One of the things we noticed, especially with regard to oversight, is that in some communities, projects, are allocated to these communities, not based on any need assessment, but what the Commission thinks that they need. And sometimes we see misplaced priorities. Now, I'm not going to worry myself about the 2008 performance because we are not there. So, but going forward, 2019, what was the extent of the need assessment that was brought to bear in the preparation of the 2019 budget? And the previous ones, maybe the ones you met on ground, did you try to find out the impact, doing an impact assessment of the ones that are ongoing to be sure that they were meeting the mandate of the Commission, when the Commission was set up? So I'd like to know the level of the need assessment that was carried through, making sure that we're not wasting resources. You just take note. You're not going to answer, maybe after about two or three people that you answer. Just yes.
First, I will just go straight to the budget performance for 2018. The reason I'm going to 2018 budget performance is that it is good that you get to know our observations so that the same negative things that we're going to talk about. The execution of the 2018 budget. You know, they do not repeat themselves. At least even if it's in the new thinking that we want to reposition NDDC. Whereas concerned, those of us who are in Niger Delta, as concerned as yourselves, you know, and of course, we want to be partners in progress with you. And if that is possible, you know, the new thinking of Mr. President himself. Now, you will see that this performance, there are too many things here, you know, that, of course, you know, we cannot judge, you know, as good enough when it comes to spending public funds. Let us start from Recurrent. If you look at what you have done on page 1, that first page, where you talked about recurrent expenditure, virtually all the releases that were done, that were given to you, they are recording 100%, and the same amount of money that was given was what exactly you spent. You know, if you look at it, no matter whatever it is, the voodoo economy, whatever anybody has to put on paper, this is wrong. You could have spent what was given to you for recurring the same amount of money. But the one that is very troublesome, or the one that is worrisome for me, is the one that comes to capital expenditure. That capital expenditure is the one, of course, that is expected to benefit the greater majority of our people in Niger Delta. You know, you will recall that you spend 90% of what accrues to you as revenue for 2018, 90% on capital expenditure. 10% went to recurrent. And that 10% was just about 35 billion out of the 346 billion you received. 90% that went to capital, 10% of that amount of money. 90% of the amount of money went to 10% of the projects. 90% of capital expenditure of 2018 went to 10% of line items. And for the very first time, against what is acceptable in any parliament all over the world, you exceeded the provisions in 78 items, line items, by 1,000%, 5,000%. I don't know how I'm going to look at that. Not by little margins of 1%, 5,000%. What we were supposed to spend maybe 1 billion on, you spent 50 billion. And of course, I think that's the reason why even the Senate Public Accounts Committee, you are looking at some of the items, you know, where the budgetary provision, you know, that of course the Senate considered for you 2018 was an amount of money we thought you could manage. But when it came to execution, you went ahead, exceeded your budget by 5,000%. So we are going to look at it. You know, maybe the position that will come on subsequently, you know, we'll probably find those who are responsible for this. And like I said, 78 items out of 511 items who exceeded budget, between 10% and 5,000%. So please want to let you know, this is totally unacceptable. And when it happens, there are serious reprisals, and people really must be made to bear the brunt. You don't just spend money. If you are going to spend the money, there's no need for you to come to this committee, which is, of course, appointed by the Senate to look at your budget. By the time this committee, you know, looks at this budget, we're going to take it to plenary for Senate to approve. So when Senate approves, it becomes to a law. So for you to break an appropriation that is done for you is a violation, you know, of the law, which is an act of parliament. Then in which case, there are serious consequences. We are telling you now, so that there will be no repetition. You have come, you know, under a new mandate to say, look, want to reposition NDDC. In our quest to develop the region does not mean that we have to spend money. Most of the items that are even important on your capital expenditure, you didn't put money there at all. And if we really have to look at those items where you put 90% of capital expenditure, we want to look at the usefulness of those line items, their description, what you spend 90% of your money on. You will find out that, you know, you probably will be found wanting. But I think it's a lesson and a very good observation to tell you. You will find out that on the other page, sorry Mr. Chairman, I'll just be done quickly. You will see the speech that you made. You are giving percentages of 99.something%, performance and all of that. This is mispresentation. Where you are performing 99% on less than 1% of the items, and then of course where you overspent money, right, on items that of course were not of use to the people of Niger Delta. So I criticize that play very seriously based on this observation. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Budget. At least I was chairman of this committee in the 8th Senate, and I have my reservation about the expenditures and how the 2018 budget was implemented. And I'm happy that most of the directors are here, because I'm going to ask some pertinent questions. I want the directors they will answer those questions. Because what he has raised now is of great concern to all of us. I know, so that you can start preparing your mind, that you did only one advert in the whole of 2018 budget. Only one advertisement for job, only one. And we have it in our file. Only one. We cannot blame the MD, but we are coming to that, because we are not going to just approve and then people will go and concentrate on emergency jobs and all of that, and this thing and all those things, and this. Of course, there will no provision for those ones. So you can be assured that some of those things will not have provision in this budget. All those things, they will not have any budgetary provision. So if you have incurred expenses on that one, better go and sort yourself with the people. So yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, distinguished colleagues. I have a question, but I will digress a little. But I feel it is a good opportunity for me to raise the matter before the press and the management of NDDC. There is a news on the media that 300 jobs was awarded to a senator. Out of these 300, 20 were paid but not executed. I think, Mr. Chairman, she should throw more light on that, because we have every responsibility to protect the integrity of this Senate. Thank you. 120 were paid but not executed.
Let them answer this one first.
So now,
Thank you, Senator. I'm sure for these first three questions, I should be able to answer them. And when I think I'd require the directors to answer the questions, I'll direct the question to the director that I think would be responsible for that question. I know there were a lot of misplaced priority in those projects, and that's what we're trying to correct in this repositioning process that we're putting in place. And now we're trying to ensure that there's a proper needs assessment, not based on friendships, for projects to be taken to various communities. You're not just going to say, yes, I know Mr. X, so let's build a stadium for them. There will be needs assessments, and I'd like to say that we are particular about the environmental impact assessments. It's everything, especially those who live in Port Harcourt, for instance, who are trying to survive with this soot issue going on there. So there must be environmental impact assessment to build your bridges. It must be done properly. The designs and all of that should be coming. But the most important thing, as you know, I'm happy that the chairman was my classmate in law school, and we were called together on the same day, that he who owns the land owns everything thereon. So when you go as NDDC into a community and begin to build schools and build health centers, the owner of that plot of land actually owns that building. It's just that those who live in those communities haven't made any claims on those. So what we are going to do now in the new NDDC is to ensure that if we're going into a community, they should be able to give us documents to prove that these plots of land have been donated to the Commission. Now, for our capital expenditure and what has accrued on what was budgeted for and what we actually spent, I accept that it was a great embarrassment to the nation. In the case of Water Hyacinth, the budget that we had in the 2018 budget was for 800 million. But what was spent was actually 10.3 billion. For Distilton, 2 billion in the budget, and what was spent was 37 billion naira. Now, I have been under so much pressure and blackmailing because I've been pressurized to pay contractors quickly. Everyone has campaigned that the people in our region is very hungry, pay the money, pay the money. But we belong to those communities, and the communities must take ownership of the projects. So what I would like to assure the committee is that, as properly observed, we're not going to be under any pressure to pay contractors that have not performed. We've started our verification exercise. We just finished. A lot of embarrassing things have happened. Some contractors got awarded contracts before their companies were registered. Some of them are not registered companies at all. There are so many fake IPCs. Almost everyone you see in Nigeria has an IPC. There is no emergency job that has a stated sum on the award letter. So you are awarded a contract without the actual sum, and because I'm your friend as MD, I decide, let's make it 2 billion. And you go on telling everyone that we owe you 2 billion. I'm happy to inform the House that we have contacted the Council of Registered Engineers, Recurrent, Council of Quantity Surveyors, who would go to look at these projects with our teams that we put together. We're calling on the NGOs, the local government chairmen, members of the CDC. The community will be out there during the assessment exercises to ensure that we take proper measurements. Everyone has a photograph of the jobs that are well finished. Sometimes I'm sent the same photos for different projects. Now, in submitting the list to the governors of the 9 states, which is a fantastic thing that we have done, we have found out duplications. People have collected contracts for the same roads from the state governments. They have collected from FEMA. And then they come to NDDC and collect the same road project. So, if I have a friend who is doing road A at Omoku, I know about it. I come to NDDC, I get that same road. If he's going to give me some problems, then we'll decide and negotiate on how we're going to do that. So there's a lot of fraud. We have also seen someone just during this verification exercise who has over 55 IPCs or lots for the same contract of electrification. I think it's in Cross River or Akwa Ibom State. I'm not sure which of those states. For the same contract. So that contract has been awarded 55 times. So there are loads of things that we need to do. And so the pressure, and I want the Senate to protect me. The pressure and the blackmail that I've refused to pay money quickly is getting embarrassing, but I know that the communities stand with us. The communities are waiting for the assessments to come. So I want to assure this Senate committee that history will never repeat itself. The people of the Niger Delta will find it very difficult to complain that they are marginalized if we don't redirect the system and to ensure that people pay. Also, for scholarships, we have decided that instead of giving 200 scholarships to people who don't deserve it, who have connections, we would rather have scholarships within Nigeria for master's degree, second, in every ward, 1 person per ward, automatic for every first-class student. So if in your ward, for instance, 5 people have first class, it's their gain. It's the gain of that ward. So it's not going to be based on connection, and everyone would then benefit. We have also stopped medical assistance. When we came, there were 5,000 requests for medical assistance, not by any poor Nigerian. All of those who can afford it, some have traveled abroad and come back, but they're making claims.
Budgetary provision for medical assistance?
I don't think there is budgetary for medical assistance. So since we came in as interim management, we have stopped medical assistance. And what we'd rather have is to ensure that the primary health care centers work. And that's what is more important. If the primary health care centers are working, then the people of the Niger Delta will benefit more. So those are some of the things that we're trying to put in place. And I want to reassure the very distinguished senators that we're trying to give a human face to all of this. A lot has happened. And if those things didn't happen, there would have been no need to bring in this interim management. And with the letter from the President to the Senate and the National Assembly, we have been brought to come in, to run this commission, and of course to superintend over the forensic audit, and to bring all of these things together to ensure that things are done properly. Thank you. Sorry, the question about the media, that's what it is. That's the media, and too many things in the media. I'm not aware of what you're talking about. I haven't seen it, so I'm not really aware of the media. Sorry? That the MD said so? I'm not aware. I'm not aware of that media publication.
Yeah, before you, MD, if you don't have a registered company, is there a contract? No, I'm asking you. You made some comment.
Yeah.
Which one? If you don't have, like you use some legal terms here, and so you know what to do.
Yes.
That's what I'm saying.
Yes, there's no contract.
Okay. Which one?
Because you can't put something on nothing.
You can't put something on nothing. That's what I'm saying. You can't put something on nothing. Yes, please.
2018, they were able to raise their budget to 90-something%, which is a good note. This is not usual with many organizations. And I pray that 2019, 2020, and so on, we also achieve the same feat. The major problem I have, NDDC should define itself of what exactly they are going to do. Local government area is struggling to do monopomp. State government is struggling to do monopomp. NDDC is struggling to do monopomp. You see, we need to define the area of intervention so that we don't go and do small projects that normally the local government councils can handle. When we are intervening, let's intervene in projects. When we conclude it, every person will know that yes, what you've done, no local government can handle it, or perhaps a state government might not even be able to handle it. Let's define ourselves in that area. It's an advice. 2, the second issue is there are many uncompleted projects littering the entire length and breadth of Niger Delta region. In every dispensation, many more projects are awarded, and some of them are only mobilized just for the mobilization maybe some 10 years ago, and no more payment. Some of them, they take the mobilization and abandon the job and leave the site. Some, they take the mobilization and do the work to that level and put in for IPC, and no payment comes up because maybe they don't have real contact, they don't have the connections, and so on and so forth. So my prayer is that I believe that you may have taken an inventory of all the projects the Commission has awarded from inception, and then there are different levels. Now, make a program of how to complete them. Because if you don't complete them, they also become environmental hazard. You build a road halfway, you dig a pit halfway, they become environmental hazard. So I suggest that you look at that one. Now, one key issue our colleague Matthew has read here is spending outside the budget is law itself. Because the budget is an act when it is passed into law, and then you have the silting, 2 billion. It rose to maybe 10, 25, 35 billion. It is completely outside the law. And I think that this Senate should do something. What I think we will do, I will do something. Because if it is a law and somebody fails the law, we must hold that person responsible. We must. If we are asked to use 2 billion for the silting, then you went ahead to spend 35 billion or 20 billion or whatever amount outside the budget provision. That itself is law. You are going against the law and it's punishable. So we have to look for the appropriate punishments and give to those people. By the time we punish one person, thank you. By the time we punish one person, I think they will come back. Now, the other issue is here, my sister. Thank God the president brought you at this time. You have the political this thing. President himself appointed you for this one. You have a lot of work to do. Just go with the same pace you are going. Be straight with whatever you are doing, so that you can make history for yourself. One day they will know. One lady came in at this period and changed the whole thing. NDDC has become a marketplace. If you go there, you can't even enter that place. Many of us who live in Port, we don't go there. But if you go there, if you get a small thing in your pocket, they will take all of that one. And it will be difficult for you to go inside. It's a difficult place to go in. So please, sanitize the place and let's have decency. Thank you very much.
My own sister. Yes, so that's why I had to demand to speak. My acting MD, I want to appreciate you for your presentation and also identifying the purpose for which Mr. President brought you at this time. I know most times where women are given responsibility, they stand out to make a good name, and I trust and believe you will live up to expectation, so that at the end of the day, women in future will have the opportunity of being trusted. Having said that, we've listened to your budget presentation, and two questions I noted to ask or to raise. One has to do with the need assessment, which I'm going to link it up to another issue. It's been properly handled by my colleague. In situations where proper need assessment is done across the states or the regions, you will know what the people really need that will be beneficial and useful to them. And when that is done, you will have to identify the specific areas. Say, for example, if there is need for renovation of school or construction of a new school, it must be specific as to where such a project will be cited, and not to just lump it for the states. If you allow it open, anyone that has access can lift it up at that moment and take to his or her own area where the need was not there. I've gone through almost all the pages. That is what I have observed. Let's be specific as to where projects are to be cited. I have several of them in my state, Akwa Ibom State. The other issue has to do with education. I am an educationist, and my concern, my cry, is always how to improve the education of our children. And the provision of 4% of your budget to that sector, I want to say, is inadequate, Mr. Chairman. We have to...
Not even 4%.
Less than 2 points. We have to look into that if this country must move forward. And then, lastly, 9 states make up the commission. And out of these 9 states, what I have observed, the projects and locations to various states, they vary. You have some having over 60%, while some are having 2% provision for projects. For example, Akwa Ibom State, where I come from, and Akwa Ibom State happens to be the #1 oil producing. Yes, sir. Google, no, we can prove it.
Gombe.
We can, which Gombe? Excuse me. I need to know what are the NDCs, what criteria are you using in the commission to allocate funds for projects for the various states that make up the commission. And then finally, government is continuous. I'm happy you've stated that your assignment, your responsibility is to correct the ills of the past. Projects that were started long ago, abandoned, please ensure it is taken up and completed. That can only be done when you allocate or allot enough funds. It's better we take on the projects that were done, not completed, than start fresh ones. For example, in my own community, my village of birth, Mbokoyokan in the Refon, there's a short bridge and the road for over 4 years now. I'm sure your director will know the area. The provision I have seen here, 130 million, I'm very certain will not complete that route for us to have access into the community. Thank you.
It's an indication that they want to deliver. So I congratulate all of you. If we look at 2018 budget, you will see that there are a lot of inequalities. There are 9 states here. If you look at what was spent on rivers, about 34 billion. In Ondo State, 16 billion. That is times 2. So that means that rivers benefited.
Production.
Yes, production. Yes.
They will have the base of production. They will have more than you.
Yes.
They will have about 2%.
Yes. So my appeal is that 2020 budget should be fair.
Based on production.
Yes.
We don't allocate. If you look at them here,
Yes.
if you go to the, you can see that what do you call it? Akwa Ibom has 49.8 based on production. But you are from Ondo.
Yes.
About 2%.
Oh, those state is not 2%. No, 7. Yes. Even. Yeah. No, but what we are saying is that what must be put.
Your 7% allocation.
No, must be put properly. Why I'm raising concern is that there are many abandoned projects in those states.
There are so many abandoned bridges, abandoned roads. So if they are going to capitalize on our 7%, let them bring the 7% and we use it judiciously.
About 90%
Yeah.
of the budget.
Yeah. And some of us too, we have personal interest. If they can give us opportunity, there are some 40 years. It's okay.
Where they got the approval to do that, so that's why I don't want to wait.
And the
we
procurement
handle those issues.
And the procurement process is very clear.
Yes. So
for you to go.
You said 90, Abi? 90 line items.
Line items.
You said about 70 or
78.
Yes. The 78 line items that exceeded their budgetary provisions. The Auditor General has, although he has written to us that he's going to submit them. Just excuse me. The Auditor General has written to us that he's going to give us this 2018, 2017, this thing. And he said he's going to send it to this committee by next week, Tuesday. There we are going to revisit that issue. So I would like, gentlemen, let us deal with other questions. As soon as we get Auditor General's report, because he has written to us about it, that he's going to give us, on the 18th of February, he is going to give us the audited account for the 3 years. So I would like to appeal to when we get it in the committee meeting, we will now take the next decision on what we are going to do. But can you answer the ones they have, what issues they have raised?
Yes. We have ensured that we now work properly, cordially, very cordially with the governors of the 9 states. The Niger Delta does not know any political party. The people must benefit. So we are indeed working with all the governors to ensure that we no longer have the duplication of projects. We will ensure that all the projects are completed as much as possible, as much as we can. But I'd like to say that most of the projects that you see as abandoned were actually awarded as emergencies and not in the real sense as emergencies. The Procurement Act is very clear about what an emergency procurement is. And most of these projects were awarded under the deceitful guise of being an emergency. And that's why in most of these cases we do not have a letter of no objection from BPP. So most of these projects that we're looking at and we're saying were not completed or were seen as abandoned were given to contractors who were not qualified to actually handle those contracts. They were not properly bidded for, and so people were handpicked for these contracts to be awarded to them. I'd like to also say that most of the emergency projects that have not started, most of them, when they heard that we were now going for verification, began to try to go to site. Some people had been awarded contracts for some years, and then during the verification, they all had some semblance of IPCs. And when we started this process of the verification exercise, some of them now tried to go to sites or tried to get the state offices to now get them mobilized to sites, and we didn't do that. So we are in the process of saying that all those projects that haven't started, or those who are 20% done in cases of emergency, stand cancelled in accordance with the award letters that were given to them, and most of them have elapsed anyway. So I find it very difficult when I'm pressurized to pay people who have only performed like 20% in cases of emergencies in contracts that were legally given as emergency contracts and have not been performed to up to 20%. So those are the things that we see, and most of these projects that we see. And I really want Nigerians to know that no one would pressurize us to pay for contracts that are less than 20% that were legally given, because the Procurement Act is clear, especially in my case as the acting managing director CEO. Yes.
You have go less than, in fact, most of them have expired.
Yes.
So you don't,
Yes.
use your legal this thing. Most of them have expired.
Yes.
Most of them, they have not gone up to 20%. You don't need it. Evoke the necessary sections of this thing and act on it. Unless the one that you have advertised, don't even need that to all this thing. We support you in that. Go ahead with it quickly.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Some of the requests that have been made, this is not the time maybe for us to start, agitating for development in our different states in Niger Delta. But it is good that some of us will put on record that your predecessors in office, when they came for budget performance sometime last year, I was very vehement in my submission to them, because looking at it, that Edo State had about 5.3% of the capital budget, for that year. When I raised the issue, it was that my governor, Governor Obaseki, was the one responsible, for the non-performance, up to an acceptable level, by NDDC in my state. I'm not going to look at that now. I'm not going to talk about it. But there has to be equitable distribution of projects commensurate with the production level, as you already know in your own statutes. So that we don't come here and start bickering as members of this committee. What is due my state should be given to my state. And it has to be done. Because of some of the positions some of us occupy. I don't want to look at it as a bargaining power for us, or a bargaining instrument for us. I expect that for as long as you have brought this budget, please adhere strictly to its provisions, so that nobody comes scampering around or pressurizing you to get projects done in a different states. That should be very clear. Number two, I think I have to clear something very clearly. When expenditure is already incurred, the Director General for the Federation goes to audit the account. And in fact, your own statutes establishing you, if you go under it, you will see audits. You have to audit your own account 6 months to the new financial year. And when that one is done, you send it to the Director General. If you have a board, the management letter must go with your audited account to the Director General. If you go to section 85 of the Constitution, the Director General's office is only answerable to one committee in the Senate. That is the Committee on Public Accounts. So when your audited account is brought to us, we have started reviewing it now from 2015, 2016, 2017, 2018. By the time we're able to clear that and bring it to plenary and it is passed, it goes to executive for necessary sanctions, you must know. Because I'm not coming now as a member of this committee. I'm coming in maybe as chairman of public accounts. The whole idea is not punitive. It's to make sure that your mechanisms of spending public money, you adhere strictly to it. So, Mr. Chairman, just 1 minute. You say because we are still inviting you, there is no question when you have incurred expenditure, just like we have noticed here. The Director General is still going to bring that report to us at committee level because it's answerable to us. I'm bringing it to this committee. So, please, it must be very clear that your expenditure must run within the confines of what is acceptable according to all the statutes, whether it's the Fiscal Responsibility Act, Financial Regulation, or any of such
Mr.
acts.
Chairman, sir.
So please, I want you to know that.
Mr.
Thank
Chairman,
you.
sir. The last speaker, my ally and colleague and brother, friend from Edo State, Chairman, Senior Committee on Public Accounts. This is Committee on Niger Delta. This is not this is not public account. If you have public account matters, then you can invite as many MDGs as possible. But this is, you are a member of the Niger Delta Commission. In fact, yes. But more often than not, you see your background as chairman public accounts coming to play. But this is Niger Delta. Having said that, Mr. Chairman, the first one is a question. Madam chairperson of the interim committee, because you are there to right the wrongs of the past. And I'm happy for you, because in spite of the turbulence, you are now standing firm. To God be the glory. And this is, your budget today is 2019. Your job is cut out for you. We are in 2020. This is not 2019. So I will advise, just like you are righting the wrongs of so many dirty things in the past, I will advise that you also right this wrong. This is not 2019, this is 2020. So the 2020 is here. Okay. Having said that, according to Mandubelo, the great Sadwana of Sokoto, late, he said, I quote, "Conscience is an open wound. Only truth can heal it," unquote. I'm happy today that you have come to clear the air about these 300 and something jobs, 120 of them already fully paid, unexecuted. I think a word is enough for the wise. For the public, if you have conscience, allow the truth to heal you. I don't want to go beyond that. I'm sorry it was just politics of the past. I think let us concentrate to do our job. I remember I was chairman of this committee at a time, long time ago. So to God be the glory. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, for the opportunity.
Can you check, let us do with specifics in your budget. Specifics, not comments. The 2019 budget. If you look at serial number 24, this same thing, no budget. No, you are not, it's omnibus. We are not going to have it. I just want you to know that. Now, if you look at your budget, about 65 or 66% is for roads, and then you have another 11% or 12 to 16% for canalization. So add all of them together, you're looking at about 70% of your budget is for road and canalization. At the expense of education, agri. If I will go straight to you, I'll just give you what the figures are. Like my colleague did say, in education, you have 2.73%. Health, you have 3.13%. Water supply, you have 5.34%. Energy and power, you have 4.53%. Now, in fact, canalization only, you have 14%. Road and bridges, you have 54.95%. If you add it, so why the neglect of education? Ecology is completely zero, no percent. Agri development, zero. That is your 2019 budget. Can I take it now? I said roads and bridges 54.95%, governance and social services and sports 9.50%, energy stroke power you have 4.53%, water supply you have 5.34%, health you have 3.14%, education you have 2.73%, jetty shore protection, in fact that one added again, they have 5.78%, ecological fund 0, agric 0, canalization 14 point, all this. Why this gap in this your budget? I appreciate that most of the work of this budget were done before you even came in. I appreciate that. So that's why I'm not asking you. So yes. Now And the same thing is reflected in the states. If you go to the states, because we have done analysis of your jobs in various states, where did you fix the projects? And the same thing followed if you go to all the states, like if you go to Cross River, roads and bridges is 66.08%. If you go to Delta, it's 70.34%. If you go to Edo, it's 54.72%. We have done analysis of your budget just like the same way it reflects in all the states. The same thing we have done it. If you go to Edo for this thing, if you go to health, in Cross River is 3.36%. In Delta is 3.67%. In Edo is 6.26%. The same thing we have seen in all the states. We have done all this analysis state by state where you put all this money. Why we are telling you this? Why we are telling you this is for you to see how our minds will be working in giving you approval. So you are just preparing your mind, because if we are talking of empowerment and we are thinking of employing the youth, and agriculture is having 0% in the budget. Where do we engage them? And all this. So we are just so that we have done an analysis of all the money you have done in all the states, how the sectoral allocations of all these monies in the various the sectoral allocations are state by state, and we are preparing your mind in giving approval, unless you have a reason which will satisfy this committee why this this sectoral allocation is very, very important. Now, just take note, because I'm going to listen. Your payments that you have done in some of these, you have not done, because for your report to us, the extra budgetary this thing, you said you did not do any of this, and what we will believe you. We will not go into that now. That's not the issue. Can you please?
Okay, well, I'd like to say that this is a rolled over budget, and in what we can see here is that on the emergency projects, instead of the budgeted projects. Yes, so what happens here is that everything went into emergency, and those projects were like abandoned. So we have few months to drive this 2019 budget. And so we felt that since it's rolled over, let's try to see as much what we can do as much as possible to get these projects which already exist to be completed. That's why this has happened. It's one of the things that we're complaining about, that the emergencies now came up instead of those projects that were indeed budgeted for. And really, that's the reason why we are here as interim management. So those are some of the things that we see.
MD, that is not. You have already that project that are less than 20%, or those that were awarded.
Yes.
That you cannot put something on nothing.
No, those ones are.
That is, you know that one is doing.
Yes,
you
we
can't
know.
put something on
No,
nothing.
those ones are.
So if you are budgeting like 60%, like in deltas, for example, you have 70.something% for road. I'm not going to put canalization and all those in delta. And then education, I agree. I'm only just because we are going to look at it. The committee is going to look at it. So you can understand why we will look at certain things, yes. But we cannot justify why you can put about 80% on roads, bridges and canalization, and agriculture has nothing. education has 2%, health has nothing, all this sectoral allocation. These are the things, if you want us to, we can avail you with our work. Analysis, we have done analysis of all the funds you have, the money, the funds, the allocations, state by state, sector by sector, and we have all of them now with us. That's why we can even tell you what you did in every state, because we have time to do that. So it is, I'm only preparing your mind that we will not allow certain sectors, education, health, and all these ones to suffer.
Yes.
Because even with what you are saying, Mr. MD, road construction for you, for the performance of this, but I can assure you it's not going to last for more than 2 months or 3 months. You cannot have it for more than 2 or 3 months, and you cannot adequately finish any major road, good road, within this period. So I am only just trying to prepare your mind on that. Yes.
Audit, and then my advice is, if we are
brother, we gave you. You now want us to legalize. That's what you are saying. You had a budget. I think about 50 billion or 100 billion was for the emergency projects. Mr. You were then the director of planning, and you worked with us on the 2018 budget. And you know how you pleaded for us to be able to accommodate some of the emergency projects. Is that not correct? With your team that came to defend. I think this man, you were there too. My friend. Yes. You people came to plead that we should be able to Now, if you had emergency of 100 billion, and then you are now talking of about 7. If what we are hearing is anything to go by, you are talking about 700. This thing. We will not help you to legalize what to legalize it. Well, all we are saying to you now is that 70%, all these 70%, we are going to look at this and allocate funds to all these sectors that you have neglected. That's what we are telling you. Yeah, we are going to locate funds to all these sectors that you have neglected based on our analysis. That's the point we are telling you. The MD and you others will be these particular sectors we have talked about now. They should go back with you and look at these particular sectors we have talked about now and think of how do we, because if you don't, we cannot say we are working with Mr. President and there is nothing in agri, there's nothing in the education, there's nothing this. We cannot. So let us go back with you, look at it, and then we will be able to discuss. Discussions continue.
Listening to this, Mr. Chairman, all what we are passing today is like, Mr. Chairman, am I protected? Mr. Chairman, all what we are telling this government is like, we are trying to see how we can cooperate. We on that note, within us as a committee, see how we can call for a session for us to put our house in order and we can continue.
In Niger Delta, he set up an interim management committee, which I call the Trust Committee. And in your speech here, you made it very clear, and I'm happy with that, to say you are repositioning Niger Delta for the next level. Being a governor, I had a very horrible experience with Niger NDDC. And I'm just watching carefully to see whether this will be a theoretical fabrication again in Nigeria, which will never reflect any practical realities. And I'm very, very serious about that, personally, as a person, in the of committee, and I want to see how this turns out. Because this Niger Delta will go a long way to really prove President Muhammad Buhari right or wrong, in terms of his seriousness to combat corruption or crime or stuff like that. This is why I'm very, very happy when I heard that you are the MD, and I think you are focused what you want to do. The question is, the point I'm making here, and the one question is, Madam MD, if you agree with me, since the inception of Niger Delta, if the funds allocated to Niger Delta areas expended have been used for the welfare of the Niger Delta area, we won't be where we are today with the Niger Delta.
I agree.
And I do not know of any state that has not at least attracted up to 1 trillion naira since inception. But if you go there, you don't have 100 billion naira project justifiably in those areas. So my concern is that when we're looking at what our chairman is trying to do moving forward, that moving backward to get things done is very important. I'm not saying that it's not witch hunting, but if all the contractors who have been paid money in the past will go back and address those projects, I know the ones of my state, then the place will be better for all of us. So this is where we must put our emphasis. In the first place, that is our oversight function right, empowered by the Constitution, which Mr. President had also asked you to perform. So for us, we see that complementary effort of Mr. President to supporting for us to do our oversight function. So, Madam, I will appeal that this area should not be neglected. And secondly, though my chairman has spoken, I have a different attitude to this whole thing about life and making sure you get results. Because if we keep doing the same old things, the same old ways, we shall get the same old results. And most of the case, you see things that fill up the budget. Some of them doesn't even make sense. You see 11 million here, 9 million, 7 million, 2 million, 3 million. I call that a systematic way of trying to confuse the entire system without getting results. I wish Niger Delta NDDC today would just say, listen, we address the whole power issues with $1 billion today, and the entire Niger Delta states will not have any power issue with $1 billion. I'll be happy. I will applaud you. So I think while we're making this budget, and Mr. Chairman, that's your responsibility, that will really guide them to say this is what we think is good for Niger Delta. This is the budget, because we have the power to make this budget. It's different from other budgets. So what I appeal is that in making this, you push to understand that we're here to cooperate. Nobody is against anybody or witch hunting anybody. It's a family. Let's work together as a family for once to get results in that part of the world.
Go to the summary sheet of this presentation. Madam, are you with me? Go to the summary sheet of this presentation. You have about 5 columns. Column 1, I believe, is the line item. Column 2, you say budgeted cost. The summary sheet of proposed Niger Delta Development Commission 2020 capital budget. 2019. Is still the same. Column 1 is the line item. I hope the director budget is here. Column 2, you say budgeted cost. Column 3, you say commitment. Column 4, you say approved in 2018. Are you with me? Madam, do you have your document? Madam, can we carry on? You are on the summary sheet. Off your mic. Column 1, my sister, you say budgeted cost. Column 2, you say commitment. Column 3, you say approve in 2018. Column 4, you say approve in 2019. Amount required. Fine. What do you mean by budgeted cost and amount required? The budgeted cost is 1,200,260,057,000.055. And you say amount required is 119,664,900,000. Are you with me? what do you mean by budgeted cost and amount required? And look at the discrepancy in the figures. Who is preparing this budget?
I can much later. I can explain that to you much later. But let me just give you, if you want to build this house, for example, and this house is going to cost like 50 million, and you know you cannot generate that 50 million now. So the amount that we have to build this house is 50 million. What you can afford in 2019 is this one. Is that not the correct? So what that one says is, this house will cost 50 million. But we cannot take the whole 50 million from the 2019 budget. What we can afford from the allocation is this one. So in the next budget, anything, yeah, that is the fund in this thing. So that's what they are talking there. That's what they are saying there. If you are going to be director, I don't know what you are saying. So that is the point. That is the point they are saying. Well, you should, we don't take. You're going to ask us. Gentlemen, distinguished senators, my dear colleagues, Vice Chairman, my Vice Chairman. By the powers vested on me as the chairman of this committee, I declare this budget defense closed. No motion.